All right, we're going to go through brushes. Brand doesn't really matter too much. Just make sure that the brushes are made for watercolor and that they don't shed bristles into your paint. If you're painting and the bristles are coming out, you're going to have hairs in your painting, and when you go to remove them, they're going to leave marks. There are two main categories for watercolor brush: synthetic and natural. I generally paint with synthetic brushes because nowadays they perform pretty much as well as natural hair brushes do, and they are a lot less expensive. So that is why I use them. But a natural hair brush would be usually made with something like squirrel hair or sable hair. So squirrel, you know what a squirrel is, right? And those tend to be washier, softer. This one is a synthetic squirrel brush. It's the Princeton Neptune. And the Neptune brushes are synthetic squirrel. They're very soft. They hold a lot of water. They are really good for doing a big loose wash of paint or water over a surface. Sable hair is, I guess the animal is sort of like a weasel, and Kolinsky red sable is the prized material apparently. I use Princeton Aqua Elite, which is a synthetic sable, so it's not from an animal, but it performs very similarly to real sable. And sable brushes are not as soft and washy. They are stiffer. They hold their shape a little better. They tend to be a little more rigid, and I like them for doing more detail work because they don't spread as much. They aren't as soft, but they are very springy, and they hold a lot of water and paint, just like the squirrel hair. So these are both a size 10. This one is just a lot softer, and this one is more springy and not quite as washy. So those are the two types of brushes that you'll find. So now let's take a little bit of time to talk about caring for your brushes. Whenever you do a painting, what you really want to be able to do is preserve the nice tip of your brush so that it doesn't get all frayed and blunt, because that will allow you to do some very nice detail work. So after your brush is wet, when you're done painting with it, you rinse it off really, really well in the water. Do not smash your brush on the bottom of the, I shouldn't have to even say that, but I have seen people do it in my classes. Don't smash your brush up and down against the water jar. It just ruins the bristles. And after you've rinsed it, you can dab it on a white rag or paper towel. And I again recommend white, even though if it's a rag, it won't stay white. But that is just so that you can judge whether you have actually cleaned your brush or not. If you dab off the water by pressing gently. Another way to remove the water is by rolling your brush and pulling away from the bristles so that they are never being, you don't want to push this way because you're going to split your brush bristles out and make them fray. So you want to drag slowly and maybe roll. When your brush is clean and you're done with it, I store them horizontally. I would not store them tipped up. You know, some people store them in jars. If you tip them up when they're wet, all that water is going to run down inside the ferrule, and it will eventually loosen the glue or whatever holds it to the wooden handle. And then your ferrule will become loose and wobbly, and your brush will start to fall apart. So I let them dry horizontally, and when they're completely dry, maybe the next day or in a few hours, then I store them with the brush side up. So I am just going to tip this so that you can see my messy but full brush collection. All right, so, and I actually have these organizers that came from Office Depot, and so what I've done is I've labeled them with the type of brushes that I have in here. So I've got my Aqua Elite, my Princeton Neptunes. Here I have Silver Black Velvet. I have large brushes like that, and then they are stored. They're stored this way so that I know if I'm looking for a Princeton Neptune brush, I know where to go looking for it. It's just because I have a large brush collection. And then sometimes when you buy brushes, they come with this clear tube on the bristles, and that is just to protect them from getting smashed in transit. So taking care of your brushes is a really good idea because they are an investment. They are not something that you're going to need to replace very often if you take care of them. They are your tools, right? You want to make sure your tools are in good shape and you know where they are. Paint, you're going to replace. Paper, you're going to replace. Brushes, if you take care of them, they can last for years. It sometimes helps to have some cheap brushes just for mixing your paint and cleaning your palettes. So what I like to use, these are Crayola brushes. They are awesome for mixing and cleaning. They come in a pack of 4, so it's a little one, and you get all 4 of these for about $5. So they're just over $1 per brush, which is really inexpensive. And the way that I use them is I generally use the one with the orange handle the most. I use them because I paint from pans a lot, so I use them to dig out paint from the pan and get it out onto my palette. And I'll mix all my paints with it. Then I'm not using my good paintbrushes to do all of that. I want to save my good paintbrushes for actually painting. And then when I'm done painting, I will use one of these 2 bigger brushes, and all I do is I just get it wet and I use it to actually clean my palette. It can get into the corners. I'm not worried about smashing the bristles because it's really a cheap brush, but these Crayola brushes are really sturdy, and actually they hold up really well. I have never had them shed bristles. They hold a great amount of water, and that is a great way to keep my palette clean. I take care of those brushes just like any others, and I use just a paper towel then to wipe it all off. So it's kind of a nice thing to have around, just some cheap brushes to help you clean and mix so that you can save your good quality brushes for actually painting. This is what happens if you don't take care of your brushes. These are actually 2 brushes that are from a class that I taught, and it's a pretty drastic example, but let's see if I can make it a little clearer for you. Okay? Somebody in my classes was smashing the brush up and down on the bottom of the water jar, and now these brushes aren't going to paint very well. You're not going to get a nice clear line when you paint with them. They're just going to be frustrating. So I only keep these around to show people. I don't actually use them anymore. They are not usable. These are the exact same brush. The one on the left has been taken care of, and the one on the right has not. And so that's the difference. So it really pays to take care of your brushes and make sure they stay in good shape. Thanks so much for watching. I really hope that this was helpful to some of you who are starting out, and that even if you're not starting out, maybe you learned something new today. Please hop on over to my YouTube channel or my website and say hello. Let me know if there's anything else you'd like me to create, and I will see you in the next video. Bye-bye.